Okay, how you guys doing tonight? I am coming to you from my recording studio at home. So, yeah, the lighting's a bit odd, but this is how when I do some work in here. Tonight's assignment was about teaching diversity in the classroom, and certainly diversity is extremely important. In fact, I've always said, and I continue to say, I think this is something to teach adults more than students. Students, I think, are already naturally diverse. You see the population difference. Um, Not just only in the South, but other places. It seems that kids just immediately are more friendly, more open to people who aren't necessarily like them. There's no apprehension, there's no fear, there's no questions. And a lot of, since 9/11, 2001, this has been kind of an issue in the United States. And I think companies, workplaces, and schools and other institutions are working hard to change this. So, with this assignment, it's about teaching diversity in the classroom. I'm going to try to adjust this light a little more so it's maybe not as about. There we go. Hope that's a little better. Um, it's important to teach kids in diversity in the classroom. I'll move my camera a little bit too. Maybe that'll help. There we go. So, teaching diversity in the classroom, it's really important. It's not just only teaching kids to make them feel comfortable. It's more about understanding what's out in the world and understanding there are different cultures beyond our own or what they've grown up with, and not necessarily talking about just Americans, but this could be other cultures as well, Hispanic cultures, Latino, Asian, whatever it may be. It's important for kids to know there are different things out there, and it's just not a homogeneous society. It's a heterogeneous made up of many instead of just a single. So, again, my PowerPoint, yes, I am a STEM teacher, but I wanted to go old school and simply use cue cards or just hold up printed out slides, and that's my title page. What I took in the assignment, the professor recommended that we use children's books, videos, any articles, anything else that would help us kind of vocalize our message about diversity in the classroom. Now, when I think about this, I decided to go back to when I used to teach 7th grade social studies, when we talked about the Middle East and Asia, Southeastern Asia, as well as Eastern Asia. We're talking China, down to India, over to Japan, and just Vietnam, Korea, and moving on over back to the Middle East. So some of these books I found extremely interesting. It's about teaching the different cultures and getting kids to understand why things may be different or why people wear certain things. Like this first book was great. I loved this one. Mama's Sorry. There's the cover of the book, and basically it gives a little description. In this book, it's about a little girl who wants to wear her mother's sari. She feels she's old enough now, so she wants to try it on. A sari is almost like a very, very elaborately embroidered and woven scarf. It forms into a dress the way it's wrapped around the body in certainly different ways. And I certainly have never worn one. I can't tell you exactly how it is wrapped, but it's wrapped where it becomes like a dress, a very almost a floor length dress, and this is what covers the body. And they're worn a lot in India and certainly other cultures or Hindu culture. It's a very, very popular item, and it also has lots of cultural value for that. It's a very traditional dress. In the United States and other in Europe, you'll see as maybe more Asians become more westernized, they're wearing more Western style clothes. We're talking pants or skirts or shirts, whatever it may be. And you always see, not always, I take that back, I don't want to generalize, but you'll see the grandmother, the older generation, will be wrapped in her sari. Just that's what she's used to. It's what she's grown up with. It's a very traditional dress. It's what she's used to. Um, so there is another one. It's another great book. It's about a little Iraqi boy that enters into a kite contest. He loves kites, and they fly kites in battles. And it's more of a story, not necessarily about culture and diversity, as it is about being bullied by this neighborhood kid, basically, is what it comes down to. That's also important kids to understand, and that's part of diversity, is understanding there is different out there. And for people to understand that, just because somebody is different doesn't make them, we shouldn't fear them. And again, this is why I go back to talking about adults being more culturally in need of cultural diversity, education, and understanding. Because someone might wear a hijab, or someone is wearing a yarmulke, or sorry, it doesn't mean that they're so different that we should be fearful for them, or they cause some kind of threat to us or our way of life. It's hardly the case. So I use a lot of children's books because I think about seventh grade social studies. When we do these studies, how do you talk about the culture? It's in the standards, but also how can you introduce it more to the class students in the classroom? Now, also with this assignment, we were asked to think about how does this benefit the ESOL kids in the class as well. I see them just as students that are American students, or Western raised students. We're talking that population, who parents are not immigrants from they're not the first generation kids like my wife is first generation. Born in the United States from her family. She is Filipino or Filipina. Her family's from the Philippines. So with that, it's important for them to also understand that not only is culture and diversity taught and demonstrated in this country, but as well they get to have the opportunity to learn alongside with their American peers what diversity is about and what it's like around the world. That's really, I see it as simple as that. There is no complicated equation or explanation that goes into teaching this to ESOL kids. They're learning just as their classmates are who are multi-generation Americans versus maybe some of these kids. A lot of it turns out 65% of ESOL kids are born in the United States, yet they speak their first family language at home, which is a great thing to do, and that should be for another day. So it's important for them to also see these different cultural differences, but also maybe to understand, especially coming to the United States, it's not just, we're not so ethnocentric, focused on only American culture, but we learn about others, and certainly this is a country of many cultures. So, right here are more books. This one over here is about the Vietnam artist. She was an art student here in the United States. Her family's from Vietnam. She was born in the United States. She's the one that designed the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. It's a tremendous monument to see. It's just a black granite plaques with all the names of the soldiers who were killed or who were missing in action from the Vietnam War. It's a very powerful. When you have to see it to understand it and appreciate it. But the fascinating thing, there was a Vietnamese American who was actually the one who won a design contest. They had artists from all over the country submit ideas, and hers was the most powerful and striking, that hers was accepted still being an art student. There are many other books as well for children to understand. We talk about China. I like to talk about how the language is so different, the Mandarin language, and their alphabet is not like the American alphabet, where in Chinese each letter, each word is made up of different letters, individual letters. In the Mandarin language, it is basically different syllables for particular words, and they're putting together the syllables. If you think about male, man, okay, those are two words, but they're also kind of syllables. Then you'd have mailbox, but also another good example would be like show. I'm not talking about just like to go see a show. I'm talking about show boat, showroom. It's those syllables they put together. Now, S-H-O and then room, my bad, S-H, it is a compound word. Oh, excuse me on that one. It's hard for me to explain how Mandarin works, but it is based on syllables. So, with my flub there, and I apologize, right here, this book. It sounds interesting. I actually want to read this. It's called The Magic Brush. It's about a grandfather who paints the entire Chinese alphabet. And there are literally hundreds of characters in this alphabet. A very interesting idea for a book, and that one has me really intrigued. All these other books, it's, again, teaches about diversity. And here's a story about an Iraqi family that immigrates to Greece. So, though we don't talk about Greece, that's more European history. But it's still interesting to talk about that diversity. And it is ironic. I mean, I found this list of books I was going through, and this one is about my family is half my mother's from Greece. That makes me half Greek. Somewhere I've not been yet, but maybe one day I will go visit. So it's fascinating and interesting to see being a part of that diversity study. Somewhere I know very little of. I'll admit that. I know very little about Greece. I know some of the history. I know the politics have always been kind of shaky there. So it'd be a good idea for me to learn that as well. So basically, it's these different books. As I go through these slides, talking about different parts of Europe and Asia, and talking about these different stories, teaching about the diversity. So it's a good way to, it's a supplement, is what I've been trying to say this whole time. It's a supplement for students. Here's another one, more books. These are all the descriptions about the book. I did not write all that. It's great for students to learn from other resources besides me, besides their teacher, besides a textbook, besides, printed materials and worksheets and PowerPoints. To use a children's book, now granted we're talking about middle school age, 7th grade is what I used to teach, but it's nothing wrong with using a children's book, an elementary school book, to teach these kids about diversity. One, they may find it more interesting, but also, certainly some kids, maybe their reading level's not quite up there, so this would be right on their level and be very helpful to them with also literacy. And literacy is, that's important for the entire class. Now, in addition to these books I found, we're allowed to find other things. I found a couple videos, actually 3 total. This first one's about a little boy who is, he has a mental disability. It's autism, and he feels, he loves art, but because of his autism, he feels he's left out of a lot of stuff. People don't want to be around him. He thinks people talk about him. He doesn't feel like he's part of the community because he feels he's so different. Yet he has this love of fine art. So this story, this little video, very short video, just a few minutes, it's basically ends up his mom's talking to him, and he ends up giving a tour to a diverse crowd of adults of the museum, and he interprets and explains the artwork and the artist's intentions in the painting and things like that, and everyone's so excited to be listening to him. Oh my God, this kid's got all this knowledge. How does he know all this? They don't even think about, oh, he must be autistic. It's nothing like that. It's just like this little kid just loves art, and now he's accepted he feels a part of his community, which he was all along. But it's good for kids to also see that, because as I tell my students, we are all different. If God made us all the same, the world would be a pretty boring place. Now, we're always talking about us learning about other cultures and teaching diversity about other places. How about a video right here? What do people outside the United States think of us? This one is just that. It's comparing the USA to Europe, which I found that, it's an interesting video to watch. When you see the perspective of if you've never been outside the United States, I have, there are varying opinions, just like we have of other countries. Some of them are maybe informed, others are very, I feel, misinformed. Italy, for example, they loved Americans. Oh my gosh, they found out I was an American, there's immediately, are you from California? No, Louisiana. Close to California? Yeah, okay, sure, close to California. They would smile and want to hug you and talk to you. They're just fascinated by Americans. And this was in Sicily, and I think a lot of this had to do with World War II, when the Americans came and, defeated Mussolini and his fascist regime. So I think a lot of them were very grateful to Americans. And these are the older people that do this. But also the younger people enjoy the American culture that we share with them these days. Certainly in France, in the country, my grandmother lived in the French Alps, and we go to the village. While they were not eager to speak English with you, in fact, most didn't speak a word of English, they were very friendly to speak slower and point at things and ask in French, and some of you pick up the language. And I spent about 2 or 3 months there the first time, and the second time I spent time with family in Paris. So they point at things, say, de l'eau is water, so things like that, and they'd help you out different foods, and chien is French for dog, and we go to buy dog food, and I'd say, I need to buy dog food. I go, yap, yap, yap. And they go, oh, chien, yap, yap, yap. And I'm like, okay, so they'd actually teach you some French, which is kind of cool also. They wanted you to be a part of their culture. So this video is very interesting, how Americans and Europeans, the contrast between the two. So that is the end of my assignment. Again, excuse me for the flub earlier. But certainly knowing, when we look over this as a general concept, we teach diversity every day in our classrooms, or we should be, but we don't have to necessarily say we're teaching diversity. That should automatically be happening. The topics we study and the things, the information, and the people that we study and the people that provide the information we use to study with. It's all part of a diverse, culturally diverse, people diverse world that's very important for us to embrace and understand. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this video, and I look forward to the next one.